Y'all ever heard of Jimmy Beast? Well, he made this thing called Beast Games. Oh, you haven't heard of it? Okay, well let's talk about that first, and then circle back here, alright? Beast Games has been all over the internet, whether it's for its controversies, or people breaking down just how dystopian it all feels. And while there have been dozens of great videos about it, I wanted to look at a different angle of the series. The games. And just how terrible they are.
Each contestant will get a red ball. They will then throw them.
I mean, the word games is in the title. At least make some decent games. What's up, guys? I'll be honest, this is a little outside the type of content that I usually make, just because I tend to cover gaming content. However, since Beast Games has the word games in it, I'm gonna count it. But has anyone else watched this show? It's like, not good, right? If for some reason you missed it, or you just don't want to give Jeff Bezos your hard-earned money for an Amazon Prime subscription, Mr. Beast took 1,000 contestants and had them play a series of games against each other in order to win $5 million. It was meant to be a crossover of like Squid Game and Hunger Games, you know, since they both have the word game in them, but it turned out to just be a bunch of people running around a field, throwing things, and crying.
My jobs are on the line.
I'll start out by saying that I do like most of Mr. Beast's content. I know that he's had some controversies, and it's really easy to get some views with a Mr. Beast hate video, but that's not what this is trying to be. I like the guy. It's just after watching his Prime Video show, I don't think I like the show. It's dystopian, yes, but it's also just kind of boring. Now, I won't touch too much upon how dystopian it is because, well, half the internet already has. And I do agree 1000%. Having 1,000 people with a chance at life-changing money dangling it in front of their faces, only to make a joke about it when they're eliminated, it's a little inhumane. But that's not what I wanted to go over today. I wanted to talk about the actual entertainment value of the show, the games part of Beast Games. And I also wanted to wait until the show was over so I could look at the entirety of it instead of just slamming it after the first couple episodes. Because hey, maybe it gets better. It doesn't. But it kind of also does too, so you'll see what I mean. But the main core of the show is the games, right? It's in the title, and that's what people wanted to see. Mr. Beast basically grew his channel off of having people do crazy challenges to win a lot of money, so it makes sense to make a whole series about it. Coming into it, I genuinely thought it was going to be something like Survivor. Do you remember that show? I say like it doesn't have 47 seasons. I grew up watching it, so I remember the days of when everyone was cheering for Rupert. Or when Rob and Amber were the final two, got married, split the $1 million, and then went on the Amazing Race to try to do it all again.
Rob and Amber, you're team number 2.
And even though I remember that, I didn't really care. I watched Survivor for the sick immunity challenges they had. Whether it was obstacle courses, games that require your brain, or just something goofy. It was the best reason to watch the show. Beast Games, on the other hand, along with ignoring a big part of reality shows and not giving you a lot of time to learn about the players, also had really bad challenges. Some of them were okay, but just most of them weren't. So let's start from the beginning, and I'm gonna break down exactly what I'm talking about. Let's start with the YouTube channel pre-episode. This started with 2,000 people with the goal of cutting that number in half. And also my friend Merc Anthony was in it. Hi Merc! And before I get into the games, I want to preface that this is Mr. Beast done right. This is what everyone was expecting. And with each player getting $2,000 whether they win or lose, there's no reason for any of them to not give it their all. So let's jump into what Mr. Beast had in store for these contestants. Game 1 is split into 5 teams of 400, and they have to lift a 10,000 pound boulder all the way to the ceiling. And that's a great idea to start. It's huge in spectacle, and you get to see different perspectives and strategies come into play. And also someone's grandma screaming in agony. The next game is a bunch of briefcases on pedestals. Some have safe in them, and some have eliminated. And while this game could have been a mad scramble in luck, Jimmy shows a map for players to strategize on memorizing and choosing a safe case, and physically maneuvering around others to get it. So some players were able to get to the briefcases they knew were safe, while others had to rely on chance since their cases were picked first. Again, the size and spectacle are huge. And watching the mad dash and people trampling over each other is a lot of fun. And there's even a twist at the end where the final team had to remember where the briefcases were from the last round, so making them pay extra attention was just the cherry on top. Game 3 is the flag game. There are flags put out in front of everyone, and if you grab a flag, you're safe. But if you run out for a flag and you don't end up getting one, you're eliminated. So it poses the many questions. Do you go for an early one to secure your spot? Do you wait to see if a ton of other people get eliminated first so that you win by default? Do you wait for there to be a ton of flags to give you a better statistical chance? Or do you go when there are less flags because you know less people will be going? This caused players to start calling out their flags to give strategy and order. And watching all of this play out was incredible. Until this moment. From the beginning, Jimmy cements that blowing the horn starts the round, and then he hands the microphone to Carl, who says, "Yo!" And a ton of people jump early and eliminate themselves. If this was meant to be a Simon Says type bit, I would get it. But that wasn't the point of the game. It was an honest mistake, but then there was no retribution for those who made that mistake. Instead, you got Carl going, "Huh? Oopsie daisy, I said yo, not go." And then Jimmy's over here like, "I told you to listen for the horn. It's always been the horn." Like, you have to understand that these people are anxious and on edge. It's the final round. Of course anything would make them jump. So now all of these people are crying and disappointed that their chance at life-changing money is gone because Carl was being a wee bit silly. "I said yo!" And then they move on from it so quickly. I don't know, maybe it was just me, but that left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. Bro's mad at nothing! It's part of the game! Outside of that, it was a good game. And the last game is a trust game where you get into groups of 100 and sit on small platforms. And then Jimmy hits them with bribes to see if he can get anyone to sell out their team for the money. Now, the ideal strategy is to break down the math of your chances versus the prize. At 1,100 people with a potential prize amount of $5 million, it puts your odds of winning at 0.09%, which means your value of winning at this point is 1 over 1,100 multiplied by 5 million, which gives you a little over $4,500. So if you're bribed with anything less than that, there's greater value in staying. But $4,500 doesn't sound like much. Why would they take that? Because they won't. When $5 million is on the table, people's eyes get wide and would rather take the improbable shot instead of the guaranteed money. Which is why the first bribe Jimmy gives of $5,000 was booed at.
That ain't no Tesla, bro.
The following bribes are $50,000 and $1 million. And I'll be honest with you, if I was there and 50 grand was on the table, heck yeah, I'm jumping off that platform. First moment I get. The moment 50 grand is in play, that money is mine. Nobody should be trusting me. Because in my mind, getting that $50,000 is winning enough. At least, that's the way the game should be played. Before they started, Jimmy says,
One person's about to receive a lot of money.
Which was a lie. He lied. I don't think he realized that he lied, but he lied. Because I know that I said I would jump at the first moment I got for $50,000, but somebody else got a little antsy and jumped early.
What? No, it hasn't started yet.
Not only eliminating themselves, but all of the other players, and not even getting the $50,000.
Oh my gosh. No, because the timer hasn't started yet.
All because they weren't paying attention to the timer. And even worse, they didn't even get the $5,000 that was offered beforehand. They got nothing. Nothing! All of those people that got eliminated got nothing. Except for $2,000, because everybody got $2,000. Now don't get me wrong, it was hilarious to watch. Karma is a sometimes, but it was probably devastating to be a part of. But all in all, that's what made it pretty good content. You could say that about the flag game, you hypocrite. This pre-episode covered everything. Strength, smarts, agility, and deceit. And watching this genuinely got me excited for what kind of spectacular games Jimmy was gonna have in the Prime show. I was expecting everything I saw, just bigger and better. And I hate to say it, but this was honestly as good as it got. Yeah, the actual episodes were terrible. Beast Games Episode 1. I got some popcorn if you want some. It's not real, but you're still welcome to it. But I at least had to show you Episode 0 first so that you know what good games look like before all creativity goes out the window and repetition becomes the name of the game. Before the first game though, Jimmy starts with $1 million and 10 minutes on the clock for people to choose to eliminate themselves right away to split the money. There's no downside to this, no harm done to anyone, and free money to you. However, the catch is the more people that choose the money, the more people you have to split it with. But again, doing the quick math, at 1,000 players with a grand total of $5 million on the line, the value of your spot in the competition is now $5,000. So as long as 200 people aren't eliminating themselves, you're getting a pretty good deal out of it. So the 52 people that left with a little under 20 grand, I'm sure probably went home happy. The best way to coordinate this though is to keep an eye on the timer and watch as it gets closer to 0 to see how many other people have eliminated themselves so you can gauge what kind of prize you're gonna get. When the first person eliminated themselves right away, they didn't know they were gonna walk out with 19,000, but I'm sure the last few people probably had a good idea of what they were getting. But now it's time for the real first game. And the real first game I already have a problem with. So now you have several rows of about 80 people each, and the game is to convince one person in the row to sacrifice themselves so everyone else can move on. Otherwise, everyone in the row gets eliminated.
There they go!
And if you're one of the last few rows that can't decide, you all get eliminated anyway, so the pressure is on. But here's where the concept is lost. The person that eliminates themselves gets nothing. Nothing! No bonus money, no recognition, nothing. So for you to move on, you personally, on the other side of the screen there, you have to hope that somebody else is more selfless than you. Or you need to be manipulative enough to try to convince somebody else to get themselves out. So everybody that's moving on didn't really earn it. They made no sacrifices, they had no strategy, they just sat there and hoped that somebody else was a better person than them. And then they get rewarded for it. It's a neat idea, but it is fundamentally flawed, because now your best people aren't the ones moving on. Well, it's a good thing we're never gonna see that game again, right, Jimmy? Right, Jimmy? Right, Jimmy? Although it was fun to watch an entire row of people drop simultaneously into a pit.
Whoa! That is crazy!
Yeah, it's dystopian, but it was awesome. Game 2 is playing with blocks. Okay, I get it. There's a lot of people confined to little spaces, so you don't have much to work with. And the rules are, you need to build a tower off of one block as high as you can in 10 minutes. However, if the tower falls, then you're eliminated. And if 100 people's towers don't fall, then they go to whoever has the shortest tower. However, we never get to that point because a lot of people's towers fell. Like, it wasn't even climactic. They were tumbling all over the place. And I feel like that's kind of a fundamental flaw here too. I feel like it would have been better if you gave them to the 10-minute mark and then said stop, now we're gonna measure the 100 lowest towers. And if your tower falls after that time, then you're eliminated. Otherwise, you end up with this girl who's crying after the first 2 minutes because she accidentally made one mistake.
My leg.
And the real strategy of this should have been to not touch any blocks whatsoever until right before the end, and then maybe put 2 or 3 on there to make sure that you're not the lowest. And then game 3 is, oh boy, it's the same bribe game from the qualifier episode. Let's go. So it's simple. If you accept the bribe, everyone in your row is eliminated. It's not quite 100 people this time, but they will still get pissed at you.
Dang, bro, that's crazy.
To try to gain each other's trust, everyone starts giving out their real names to become more personable in hopes that no one betrays them.
My name is Jeff.
But the fact of the matter is, somebody needs to get eliminated. The show will not continue unless people are eliminated. So it's not like everyone can say no. And with that mindset, you gotta take a bribe. Look for an amount that sounds good and take it. That's how you should be playing this game. The first bribe was 10 grand and no one went for it. Then it got moved up to 20 grand and someone took it right away. It makes sense, that's a decent amount of money. Once it got up to 50,000, several more people started taking it because, again, that's winning enough in my book. The amount got raised to 80,000 and no surprise, more and more people took it. Because somebody has to. And I guess thinking about it, the real strategy is just to see how long you can hold out to try to get bigger and bigger money, and then hit the button before somebody else in your row does. This one guy took it and said he did it for his family.
For my family?
And then this other guy is mad because
We all have families here, man.
as if the $5 million wasn't just gonna go to one person anyway. But the fault of this game is very similar to the first. If you want to move on, your fate is not in your hands. And there's very little you can do to prove that you deserve it. You just have to hope that everyone else in your row is as dedicated to moving on as you are. If people have to get eliminated, somebody's gonna have to take the bribe. It might as well be you. It's a lot better than sacrificing yourself for nothing and then getting nothing out of it. But on the other hand, I get why some people didn't want to take the bribe. You're not just giving up the $100,000 at a chance for $5 million, they're giving up $100,000 for the experience. Just getting to be there, being part of something bigger, making connections, friendships, and potentially a larger cash prize later down the road. But if only they knew just how terrible those upcoming experiences will be, they would have taken the $5,000 from the pre-episode. Now it's time to get into the meat of it. Beast Games Episode 2. The remaining players are all split into 4 groups to correlate to each floor of the Beast Tower, each with a different game to play. The first game has 2 teams on either side in a game called Hope You Can Catch. The game is simple. There will be balls dropping through the holes in the ceiling, and if one hits the ground, your whole team is eliminated. Now, I'm sure in Jimmy's head, this was meant to be a game of endurance. He expected this to go on for like hours. I mean, look how many balls Jimmy has. There's gotta be hundreds. Even the players were strategizing who will catch the balls and who's going to hold on to them to ensure that none of them will hit the ground. But then the game starts. After just a few balls drop, it looks like the yellow team is out after only a couple minutes. Like there was maybe 5 balls that dropped. It happened so quick. Talk about anticlimactic. But hold on now, because it's not over yet. It turns out the yellow team wasn't even the first loser. The white team dropped their first ball.
That was white team's first ball.
It was their first freaking ball! Jimmy expected this to go on for hours, and you dropped the first ball! How do you drop the first one? Now, in my opinion, it would have been better if they had like a set limit of balls they were dropping, like they dropped 100 total, and whichever team drops the most out of those 100 gets eliminated. That might have been more fun to watch, and the game might have actually gone on for more than 2 minutes. But it was the first ball, guys! The first ball! And just to add insult to injury, they showed that the guy who dropped it was a former wide receiver. I guess that's why he's a former wide receiver and not in the NFL right now. The second game is called Less is More, and surprise, surprise, we have another self-sacrifice elimination game. It's episode 2, and we're already repeating games. Even Jimmy says,
I know you guys aren't happy about another self-elimination challenge.
then stop doing them. It's that easy. Just don't do them anymore, Jimmy. And your first instinct right now is absolutely correct. This is absolutely not the last one. The game is the team that has the most players sacrifice themselves gets to move on, besides the players that sacrifice themselves. The twist is that you can't see the other team or how many players that they've eliminated, but you do get a phone to talk to them to try to coordinate with them or manipulate them. But the problem is, there is no incentive to work with the other team. Each team wants to win. There is no reason for them to be honest with each other whatsoever. So obviously, they don't use it. Even Jimmy was like, no one's using the phone, so I guess I gotta call both of them so I can make something happen because this is getting boring. But let's break this down mathematically real quick. With however many players are on each side, you're not gonna win with 0 eliminations. So what is the least amount of eliminations necessary to facilitate a win? You will need at least 1 elimination to take the lead, but since eliminating 0 isn't an option, you have to assume that neither team will eliminate nobody, and so each team needs to at least eliminate 1. But since eliminating 1 only wins against eliminating 0, and nobody's gonna eliminate 0, that means you have to eliminate 2 in order to take the lead. Now, with that being the bare minimum line to win, your team should eliminate 3 to surpass their 2. However, nobody on either team thought about that whatsoever, and then they all just had a mad scramble in the final few seconds. It's like Jimmy gives them a really big time limit for them to do nothing with it for the first 99%, and then the last 1% is chaos. I guess all that math wouldn't have made a difference though, because the final amounts were 3 and 4, which just goes to show that chaos trumps math every time. But once again, just like the other self-elimination games, everyone who moved on aren't the ones that had the most guts or integrity, they're the ones who sat and waited and hoped that someone else was a better person than them. Oh boy, I sure hope we don't see another game like this again. The third game is throwing a ball into a cup. Each team gives every player on the team 1 chance to throw a ball and have it land in the cup. Most balls that land in the cup wins. This was a multi-million-dollar show, right? Beast Games budget. They had $100 million and they came up with throw ball in cup. Okay, granted, at least it's something different, and shout out this guy for making a bounce shot.
Bounce? Wait!
But once one team takes a significant lead over the other, the game is practically over, so some players didn't even get to play and just skip to the crying. Imagine being one of the last ones to go and knowing that your throw means nothing. You got eliminated and it wasn't even your fault. So if anything, they added a gold cup later into the round to give people a chance at $250,000 if they make it. But literally nobody went for it until the game was already over, so it was pointless. Now they could have made this better. Imagine if it was a last one standing game. It could feel like each team has a chance to win all the way to the end. Imagine if the 13 people from the pink team and the 8 people from the white team made it to a second round. Even though the white team was behind by a few players, they might have had more people make it in the second round than the pink team, having the rounds go on until all the players from one side are eliminated and the other team completely wins. At least it would be more exciting than looking at a 9-4 lead, knowing what the outcome was going to be. And then the final game has everyone stand on tiles with different shapes, and none of that mattered. That was pretty funny actually, I'll give them that. But the challenge is to use your brain. And trivia has always been something that's either you know it or you don't. It doesn't have anything to do with actual intelligence, it's just selective knowledge. Thankfully though, this wasn't a blowout and both teams made it interesting. But that's also because most of the questions were just really easy. Since it was so close, Jimmy comes out with the hard questions like what 100 is in Roman numerals. To be fair, I don't think this is knowledge that most people have. But when this woman flipped over the board and it said X, bro, that's 10! Everybody knows that X is 10! Dog! That might be more embarrassing than dropping the first ball in the ball game. It was the first ball! And with half the players eliminated, the last game has the 4 remaining teams each choose a captain to try to not take a bribe that gets upwards of $1 million. If they take the bribe, the whole team is eliminated, except the captain gets the money and gets to stay. So you think that's a pretty easy bribe to take, right? However, there's a second twist. If nobody takes the money, no one has to be eliminated. And because of the fact that no one needs to be eliminated, no one needs to take the bribe. And then the episode ends in a cliffhanger. But spoiler alert for the next episode, nobody takes the bribe. And honestly, it makes sense. I mean, I was shouting earlier in this video that if there was a bribe given to take the bribe, the moment 50 grand is in play, that money is mine. But that's only because people had to take a bribe in order for the games to move on. And if somebody had to do it, it might as well be you. But here, everyone can go on. Yes, that's a lot of money, but if your goal is to move on and make it to the finals, you need to keep good favor with the rest of the group. But if you take that money, you're going to be eliminated 100% the next time that players get to choose who's eliminated. So if my goal is to make it to the end to win the 5 million, I'm on team no bribe. So of course it ended exactly how you think it would. Now that we've made it to episode 3, Jimmy comes out and says that the first game that they're gonna play isn't gonna eliminate anyone. Which is nice, but really it's just code for whoever wins gets immunity from the next game. They need to break up into groups of 3, and actually it's pretty clever what Jimmy does here. The winner of the next game gets a nice house, so they're encouraged to pair with people that they know and like because they have to live with them. Once they have their teams, they just do a little potato sack race. It's good wholesome fun and everyone is enjoying it. Can't argue with that. Let's move on to the next game. The winner got a house and immunity from the next challenge, and now everyone else had an Uno reverse card pulled on them. Because the next game pins all of the teammates against each other. Can you guess what it is? That's right, it's another self-elimination challenge. Woo, let's go! The game is to put every group of 3 in a box, and they need to decide which of the 3 eliminates themselves, while the other 2 get to move on. And if they can't reach a conclusion, they're all eliminated. So at least there's a nice little twist to it. The other twist that I actually kind of enjoy about this game is that Jimmy says he will give you anything you want to help you decide. Literally anything. Well, as long as it fits in the room. Jimmy ain't calling in a blue whale for you. That'd be ridiculous. I like the imagination that a lot of these players come up with, whether it was cards, board games, dice, or even some teams having a little pizza party. Someone even ordered a horse.
Okay, who ordered that?
I don't know how that's gonna help them, But yeah, hey, he said anything. It was kinda cool, and honestly shout out the people who made the most of it and used it as an opportunity to have fun. That was probably the best part of the episode. The issue with this game is that because it's the third time we've seen a self-sacrifice challenge, it completely loses its weight. I want to see a real game, not just the nice people sacrificing themselves again for arguably less worthy people to move on. And while I'm watching this, I'm trying to think what I would do in this situation. If it was me, I'd be sitting here picking up the phone like, hey Jimmy, give me $1 million. And then I would just give $1 million to whoever decided to sacrifice themselves. But unfortunately, when Jimmy redid this same exact game in one of his YouTube videos, he explicitly said that whatever they bring into the box, they won't be able to bring out.
$500,000.
We can bring it in, but you won't be able to take it out of the cube.
They can't get it.
So technically, yes, you could bring $1 million in, you just wouldn't be able to leave with it. But I call bull on that, because all of these people ordered pizza and then they smuggled that pizza out in their stomachs. So honestly, just do the same thing with the money. Bring in $1 million, eat it, and smuggle it out. Genius! The other major downside to this game is that not everybody there made friends. And there are a lot of obvious people who are in groups of 2. So if you're just a little introverted, you're either getting voted out, or in the least bit, you're gonna make some conflict while you bring everybody else down with you. Which is exactly what makes this episode one of the most dystopian of them all, because we do see all of these people in such a vulnerable place. Especially this group here with 225, that I 100% think she should have dragged these 2 dudes out with her. God, they were so annoying. This one refused to play the game, and additionally has a very punchable face. She had every right to eliminate that entire group. But in the end, most teams made a decision, while a few others couldn't, or simply just ran out of time. So if this was the one and only time they did a self-sacrifice game, I think it would have been amazing. But it wasn't, so that's it. That's the whole episode. We're at a new angle now because I feel like it, even though all of my cords are showing and it is super embarrassing. Why are we at a new angle, you might ask? Because it's a great way to introduce today's sponsor, Nobody. Yeah, we don't really do sponsors around here. Apparently I am not cool enough, but also because a lot of them are scams. Don't use honey. So with episode 4, Jimmy has a new system for eliminating people by giving them some individual golden tickets. It's very Willy Wonka of him. What are you doing? Play the clip.
I recreated Willy Wonka's chocolate factory in real life.
There's 10 chances for them to get a ticket, so that means there's many different games that they're gonna play. The winner of each of those games gets a golden ticket, and in some cases gets the chance to bring 5 people with them to the next round. Because having the players choose who moves on definitely is way more entertaining than watching people get eliminated from the games, right? Oh boy, I hope this doesn't become a common theme. And since there's so many different games just in this one episode, they kind of had to make all the games a little smaller. And I mean, like, they are very small. Like, the first one is whoever touches this box wins. And only one guy went for it.
Oh, okay, I didn't even finish explaining it, but
Granted, at the time, nobody else knew what was going on, but still, nobody else even tried. So this guy gets to move on and choose 5 other people to go with him. Then Jimmy tells everyone that the next ticket is hidden somewhere in the city, and everyone dashes off in a mad scramble to try to find it. I don't know, it's a big city. It could be anywhere. It was under the ping pong table.
just duct tape under the ping pong table.
It's literally like the most obvious place it could have been. I'm surprised nobody found it by accident earlier that morning. All right, match point. Huh. Ah, good game, Mark. Let me grab the ball real quick. Whoa! You're not gonna believe this. Guys, I had to stop editing because I found the exact ping pong table that they used in Bee City, and it costs over $3,600. No wonder they didn't have any money for the games. They blew the whole budget on the ping pong tables. The next minigame gives every player a ball and a 10-minute timer, and the 6 people who drop the ball closest to the 10-minute mark without going over get to move on. But the catch is, if you still have the ball once the timer hits 10 minutes, then you're eliminated. So it's a clever mind game of high risk versus high reward, and even hilarious strategies like someone yelling random numbers out loud.
17, 14, 13, 11, 12.
But the real problem here is the size of the game. The actual idea of having to predict a time with such high stakes is actually a really good idea. But they ended up doing it with blindfolds and rubber balls instead of any sort of showmanship. They could have had people balance over the top of a body of water, or even put everyone in solitary cubes again so they have no sense of what's going on around them. But nope, we've got rubber balls. The next game, everyone is given one coin, and they need to collectively decide on someone to give their coin to. If they can mostly collectively agree on someone, that person gets to move on. And if they can't agree, that's 6 spots that goes to nobody. It's just a voting game. It's a popularity contest. Because I love games where the contestants choose who goes on instead of, an actual game. And honestly, I kind of hated this just because it made everyone start spreading rumors about Jeremy.
Not Jeremy. Jeremy sucks.
Jeremy is not picking any women based out of respect for his wife. Pass it down.
What?
Jeremy was so nice and didn't do nothing to nobody. And everyone's like over here talking mean behind his back. They literally labeled this woman as more creeped out by Jeremy. That was vile. Jeremy didn't deserve this. God bless you, Jeremy. This game has everyone break into teams of 6, and it's a race to pass a glass ball being balanced on a stick through all the players on the team. The first 3 teams to finish, or the last 3 teams remaining, get to move on. But I am 100% certain that nobody on Mr. Beast's team tried this game at all. I fully believe there was no testing going on, because nobody could finish it. And then at the end, it was just a few people balancing a ball on a stick in a little endurance test. I like to remind everyone that this show had a $100 million budget, and we've got people balancing balls on sticks. The next game blindfolds everyone and puts them outside the circle on a helipad. The game is, if you're the only person to step into the circle, you win. But if more than one person does it, everybody who stepped forward is eliminated. And of course, since nobody wants to be eliminated, it is literally no surprise to me that this lasted 2 rounds. Because the moment anyone shouts, "I'm getting on it," nobody wants to move. Heck yeah, I would rather let somebody else take that spot than risk getting eliminated because they might be lying. And the only reason they'd lie about it is to try to bait somebody who's already in the circle to step out. So it's a good idea for a game, but the risk was way too high for anyone to actually take a chance on it. And our next game up is a repeat from the first episode. Like literally the first game in the entire series. There's a sum of money and you can self-eliminate yourself for a split of the cash. And I shouldn't even have to talk about this. It is literally the same thing. Most people ran at the end of the timer because they had a good idea of what they were gonna get and if it was worth risking their spot in the competition. So I get it, but we're really repeating games out here in the 4th episode, and the 3rd episode, and the 2nd episode. The following game is to throw a ball off the roof to see who could get it closest to the suitcase, and the closest ball wins. $100 million budget. Though someone at least had the idea to squish the ball and make it heavier to make it easier to aim. So hey, at least there was a little bit of strategy. And the last game is to split everyone into groups, and each group needs to fully agree on one person to move on. Because I'm definitely not getting tired of the games where it's the players who get to choose who to eliminate or move on. Definitely not. Really love seeing this for the 28th time in 4 episodes. The catch here is that only the first 6 groups who decide get a chance to move on. Otherwise, the whole group is eliminated. So on the bright side, because they're all voting for a good person to move on, we're getting some more of the nasty mean people out, and maybe somebody who deserves to win actually gets a chance. So that's a nice change. But man, I have never felt so underwhelmed watching so many different games and feeling like I saw nothing new. But hey, the good news is the next episode is actually pretty good. All right, we're back to this camera angle now because I don't know, I just felt like it. Let me know if you like the other camera angle better. I did, but I'm back to this one. Episode 5 is kind of more like a filler episode. Most animes have a beach episode, so it's basically like that. All remaining contestants are taken to an island and given an opportunity to try to win that island. And if you've ever seen a MrBeast video, you know that's also code for, I'm gonna sell it right back to you and take the cash prize. Which in this case is $1.8 million, so that's not a bad deal. Only 9 of the remaining 60 players tried for the island, and if they lose any of the games on the island, they're fully eliminated. But if they win, not only do they get the cash prize, island, they can also move on to continue playing for the $5 million. Which is crazy because you have to know you're not going to also win the 5 million. Not just statistically. Like, you know there's going to be another game where the players have to vote each other out, and if they see that you already won a $1.8 million island, there's no way they're not voting you out.
9 is coming for that 5 million and saying deuces.
Oh, no, you're not. But let's get into the games. The first game has 4 Navy SEALs dropped onto the island to hunt the contestants. So the players have to hide in trees, bushes, in a hole, or even cover themselves in mud, hiding wherever they can to survive. And this was awesome. You get to hear about how the Navy SEALs track and move around the island, moving to the farthest point first because that's what they expect the players to do, and seeing the absolute fear in each player's eyes is so engaging. I think the only complaint I had with this game is that it didn't go on long enough. The moment they found one person, it was over. And I kinda wish maybe they had to eliminate 2 or 3. Otherwise, great game, lots of tension, no notes. And this guy called Carl a Make-A-Wish kid.
Are you one of those, like, Make-A-Wish kids?
The second island game feels like something right out of Survivor. Each player gets a coconut and they have to throw it as far as they can towards the red line, but if it touches the red line or goes past it, they're automatically eliminated. Otherwise, the farthest 2 from the line lose. So what's the strategy here? I mean, throw it hard, but not too hard, right? Really though, the optimal strategy is to just go last. Because either you're waiting for other people to overthrow it, which will get you to move on instantly, or if you are last, you can gauge where the last couple coconuts are and just make sure that you throw it past that. And technically this is the same concept as throwing the balls at the suitcase from the last episode, but what makes this better is the setup and showmanship. The setup is unique and different with much higher stakes and more tension. So another good game. But the next person that gets eliminated is completely up to a vote from the other players that passed up on the island. Oh boy, the 5th episode in a row where the other players get to decide who goes home. Let's give it up for the 5th episode in a row, guys. 5th episode. And once again, this is just a popularity contest. If you didn't make friends, you're getting eliminated. But what I can't comprehend is what this cheering from the boat is. Like, what the hell? They all seem like they were excited, and then they weren't. Like, did they count the votes wrong, or is something fishy going on? I'm not gonna think too much into it. The next game is actually pretty good. It's a game of trust and deceit. The remaining group of 5 have to choose one of them to be the captain, which is ironic because that might have been the hardest part of this game.
I'd be happy to lead.
I also would be happy to lead.
I think I had the most life experience, so.
So you want to also nominate yourself as captain, is what you're saying? So we have 3 people that...
I want to be the captain, too.
The captain puts 4 checks and 1 X hidden in the 5 boxes. And then each player comes up to them asking which box to choose in order to keep them safe. But is he telling them the truth, or is he lying to them? Or he might just refuse to give them any information whatsoever. Because if he guides everyone to the check marks, it'll leave him with the X, so he can't be friendly to everyone. It's a fun social experiment of how you treat people that you know trust you, or how you treat people that you know are skeptical. But I also found it kind of weird that they just brought in Little Yachty. He barely said anything, and he was just kind of there to be there, get his money and dip. Honestly, I kind of respect it. But it looks like the captain played his cards right and it turned out exactly how he planned. Another well-played game. Then we get to the pirate ship game, where contestants have to shoot cannons at each other's boats. This is what they kept hyping up in the trailer, and I am very excited to see it. Too bad we never will, because Jimmy offers $450,000 for one player to eliminate themselves. And of course somebody's gonna take it because that's money. I respect the hell out of that. But they paid for the pirate ship and the cannon, so, you know, they fired them anyway. Then it comes down to the final 3 in a mind game. The winner gets immunity and gets to choose who goes with them to the final game. Each player has a path before them, and the first to get to the end wins. And they can only choose between a 1, a 3, or 5 when moving. If you're the only one who chooses that number, you get to move that many spaces. But if somebody else chooses that number, neither of you get to move. And I hate to say this, but it's literally the race game from Toontown. Like, literally. But unfortunately, there is one major problem with this game, and that's the fact that there's only 3 people. Once 2 people form an alliance, they can just alternate between 3 and 5. And the 3rd player can only choose to either roll a 1 and move too slow to win, or choose 3 or 5 to block one of the others. But if they block 1, then the other one gets to move forward. So the moment that 952 and 711 knew that they had a connection, the game was over by turn 2. And there's a really simple way to fix this. Just have more players. I hate to say it, but honestly, if you make it more like Toontown, you have 4 players that can choose 1 through 4. This allows enough diversity and choice, while also breaks up any form of an alliance, and adds a lot more strategy to the game. I'm really beginning to think that the Beast team did not test any of these games whatsoever, because there's no way they didn't see this coming from a mile away. Of course, 952 wins the game, and she chooses 711. Nobody was surprised. Except Mac.
Holy!
Then the final game and the deciding factor on who gets the island comes down to a 1v1. Each player has 2 cases and has to put a deed in one and an X in the other. They have to hide their deed and try to pick the other players. If you choose their deed and they choose your X, you win. Otherwise, if you trade deeds or X's, you try again. And it literally took 1 round. Like, I'm not even surprised that it took 1 round. Like, 711 just sets the D down on one side and then the X down on the other. Of course, she can hear exactly what's going on because he's over here with a piece of paper like, and then he's putting down the X like, so she can hear exactly where it is. Then when it's 952's turn, she's over here clanking and making noises like she was part of that one song in High School Musical. So although the episode ends on a cliffhanger, she knows she already won, and the audience already knows she won. Anyways, yay, she won an island! But I gotta say, this was probably the best episode yet. The whole thing played like a game of Survivor. And with the smaller groups of people, I think the games played better too. And best of all, most of the eliminations were completely decided by the players' own hands. They always had control over their own fates. And I think that's actually what made it good. So let's move on to the next one, because I have a lot to say about that. Well, I'm back to this angle now. I decided I like it more. Episode 6. The remaining players are asked to break into 3 different groups depending on which game they'd rather play. There's a mental game, a physical game, and a game of chance. And we'll start off with the game of strength. And all these players need to split into 2 teams. So of course, 2 team captains need to be picked. How do they do that? With a push-up contest, of course. Because why not? Who cares anymore? I don't care anymore. I don't. And so they begin picking teams. And if you can count, you may have noticed there's an odd number. So basically, the last person who gets picked is immediately eliminated. Which kind of sucks. Not just kinda, it sucks. It sucks real bad. Like, it's the same concept as being the last kid picked for kickball and then nobody wanted you on their team, so they all just play without you. That kind of pain hurts on another level. And I'm not gonna say that the last 4 to be picked were because they were girls. I'm just saying that nobody has denied there being any sexism in Beast games yet, so take that for what you will. But now that they're in teams, they're pinned against each other in a true game of strength as they have to pull a 6-ton monster truck across the finish line. So that's actually pretty cool. And to add a little bit more flavor to the challenge, there's a huge speed bump towards the end of the track that really shakes up the strategy. And it actually becomes the deciding factor because even though the pink team started behind, they had a better strategy by backing up and using momentum to get over the bump. And that's what gave them the victory. This is the type of game that Beast games should have been about. Give me more of this. But that is nowhere near where this competition ends because apparently the physical game is the best 2 out of 3. So in the meantime, we're jumping over to the mental challenge. Some would say that I am mentally challenged. Some would say that. We start off by Jimmy saying that he needs to know who in the room is the smartest and sorts them from highest to lowest to give them an advantage. And again, since it's an odd number, whoever scores the lowest gets eliminated. So I'll take that one at least because everyone's fate is still in their own hands. And being able to take a quick glance at this test, we can see that it's a very typical IQ test. Now, if you don't really understand what an IQ test is, the point is that every answer can be determined from the information that you're given in the question. It tests your ability to think logically and with critical thinking. So with all of the answers tallied, Jimmy takes this information and then lines them up by the smartest to the least smartest, which I would totally understand if this challenge actually had anything to do with intelligence. But it doesn't, because now they're jumping into trivia. Trivia is random and selective knowledge and has nothing to do with your IQ. I could ask a rocket scientist who the lead singer of BTS is, and he'd probably have no clue. Do you know who does have a clue? Maybe your 14-year-old cousin. Is your 14-year-old cousin smarter than a rocket scientist? Possibly. So when the smartest guy chooses the dumbest contestant, I'm not even surprised that she beat him because their IQ has nothing to do with knowing that the California flag has a bear on it. So when Jimmy says,
And what's crazy is this is the second time in a row someone who scored the highest on the intelligence test has lost to someone who scored the lowest.
like he's surprised, I'm banging my head against my desk. Listen, I don't have a problem with trivia. I think trivia games are a ton of fun, and I have a lot of respect for people who are good at trivia and have a lot of this selective knowledge. It's fun to know things. If anything, I think it's a testament to how Jimmy's team is just terrible at setting up these games. The one good thing that came out of this is that the two brothers that made that one girl cry in the cube both got eliminated. So there is some justice in this world. But you could tell that the producers wanted to keep these guys on because not only does Jimmy try to convince them to go against each other so that one of them is guaranteed to move on, but when it looks like the second one is about to get out, he tries bribing the other guy with money to do another question.
You can take $50,000 in cash, but you have to run it back for one more question against him.
Like they're not even hiding it. Then we jump back to the next physical game, which is just a foot race. There's multiple flags spread across the track up to hundreds of feet away, and each team goes one at a time to sprint and try to get each flag first. Whoever gets the most flags wins. This is actually quite fun because you get to see how they strategize which player to send out first. Do you send your fastest players on the shorter, quicker sprints, or do you try to save them for some of the longer ones? Do you see who the other team chooses and then try to choose someone who's a close matchup, or do you choose somebody that you're going to be more confident in? It's also a nice way of reincorporating that flag game from the YouTube video, but giving it a twist so it doesn't feel like they're doing the same thing over again. So far, the physical games have been the highlight of this episode. And in the end, the orange team came out victorious, so they're heading to a third game. But before hopping over to that, we're going to check out the game of chance, not the board game. Although that would be really funny if they went in there and it turned out to be the board game. There's a board game named Chance, right? Okay, there is. I looked it up so I didn't look stupid. It appears to be a variation of Monopoly. So they've got all the players back in the room with a bunch of trapdoors and a giant wheel. And everything in this game is completely up to chance. Or is it? The wheel decides how many people get eliminated. It could land on none of them, or it could land on all of them. And tough luck, it landed on 12.
Yeah. Go back.
Keep going. Dang. 12.
But wait! I'm gonna break out my tinfoil hat real quick. It first landed on 14 and then went back to 12. Wheels don't do that. They slow down and they stop. So that tells me one of two things. Either the wheel is weighted and it was always going to land on 12, or the wheel has a mechanism and when the crew saw it landing on 14, they dialed it back just a little bit so it would go back to 12 and maybe be a little less punishing. My money's on the second one, but let me know what you think. Wheels don't just do that. So the 16 players have to choose a platform before they all start opening randomly, and the first 12 players to drop are eliminated. There is a trick to this though, because every 5 doors that open, all the players get an opportunity to switch platforms. However, not many people moved, which tells me that a lot of them haven't heard of the Monty Hall problem. Anyone want to take this one? I'll take this one, Jimmy. The Monty Hall problem is a probability puzzle named after the host of Let's Make a Deal, Monty Hall. The puzzle goes as following. There are 3 doors, 1 with a car behind it and 2 have goats. And you have to choose the one that you believe has a car. If you choose a goat, you don't get a goat. Sorry. Let's say you choose door number 1. The host then opens door number 3 to reveal a goat, and then asks you if you'd like to switch doors. Probability states that you should switch doors as there's a lesser chance that you chose the car on your first try. Glad I could be a help. Thanks, Jeff. So anyway, the point is that it is beneficial to swap platforms, probably. But unfortunately, we lost a lot of good people today. Rest in peace, Jeremy. Should have changed platforms. And now we circle back to the tiebreaker for the physical game. Bro, if I knew physical had to play 3 games, catch me in the chance room with a 25% chance of survival. The tiebreaker has each team choose one player to dead hang from a bar. The person who hangs on the longest wins for the whole team. And it's a fine idea, but it could be better, especially since the orange team had a dispute amongst themselves on who to send. So why not just let everyone do it? No, seriously, genuine question. They have the budget, get everyone in harnesses, lift them all up, and the first team to drop all of their players is eliminated. It feels a little bit more fair. I mean, maybe the pink team would have won regardless, but I feel like it would have been more interesting to watch. And at the end of the day, isn't that what you're trying to accomplish with your TV show? But with all the games finished and just a handful of players left, we're moving on to the final few episodes. And they go fast, so don't blink. So with the final 4 episodes, most of the good games have already come and gone.
All right.
I mean, this upcoming one is pretty decent, but we're really down to just like 1 game per episode now. So episode 7 starts with Jimmy rolling up, boasting that this is gonna be the most brutal game yet.
The next game is going to be the most brutal game that we have done so far.
And after seeing it, honestly, I kind of think the cube game was even more brutal. People broke down and cried in that one. Come on, Jimmy, get your head out of your butt. The remaining contestants are taken to a set of train tracks that has a real train running down it. Well, not like a real train, it's just a train for the show. But like, could you imagine? That would be wild. They start this game by choosing a captain for the first round. This captain gets to go up to the top and choose 3 people from the rest. Although Jimmy phrases this as choosing your 3 least favorite people.
Your 3 least favorite of those 20 people.
Jesus.
Which is just kind of mean, because I don't think Akira hates anyone that was left. Jimmy's just trying to make villains out here. The people that Akira chooses go down onto the track to risk elimination. And I do feel like it makes sense that his first choice was the woman who won the island. Like, she already got her prize, you know? The other 2 people were just people he didn't know well, but it's no surprise that it looks very conveniently racist.
Seems like it's all black females. What did that tell you?
And then on the other track was a Lamborghini. The player at the top gets to choose which one the train hits. If he chooses to run over the people, then they're eliminated and he gets to keep the car. But if it hits the car, then the people are saved. So there's a few pools of thought here. If you hit the people and then take the Lambo, you have to know that that's your prize now. You've got your fancy car, you've already won something, you're probably getting eliminated next. If you save the players, then you gain favor with them and the group, and then the game continues. But the problem is, they're playing this game until there's only 10 players left. And there's already 21 total. So the odds aren't in your favor. Someone needs to be eliminated. So that's why he takes the opportunity to eliminate the players and take the prize that he's guaranteed now. At least he gets to walk away with something. Although I gotta say, having a train run over people, I'm surprised there weren't more lawsuits. And obviously, if you haven't picked up on it by now, this is another game where the players are choosing other players to be eliminated. They've had so many of these already, but the one thing that I can be grateful for is that it's doing it in a unique way. So it's a lot better than the previous games where they were just like, yeah, screw this guy. But at this point, the objective is clear. So the choices you make as captain are very much influencing whether or not you're going to continue in the game. But what absolutely blows my mind is that for round 2, they sent this same guy back up there. He already won a Lambo, and he's made it very clear that he's trying to eliminate as many people as he can to keep his friend in the game. So to try to keep the same thing from happening again, on track number 1 is Akira's 3 chosen people, and also now a Tesla. And on the other track is his best friend that he's trying to help win. So on one hand, yeah, he's already got his prize and he knows he's gonna get eliminated, so he could just keep on racking up the prizes while they're being offered to him. But on the other hand, he did say so himself that his whole reason for being there now is to try to help his friend win. So no matter what you put on the other track, he's gonna deter it from hitting his friend. Besides, who needs a Lambo and a Tesla, right? By the 3rd round, they finally vote someone else, but you can't blame Akira for trying to be voted up a 3rd time, cause he knows the moment that he's not the one at the top, he's getting blasted. So of course, when the new captain is chosen, guess who the first person she chose was? That could have been enough, and I'd get it. But then, she also chooses his best friend that he was trying to save. I feel like at that point, you're just being evil. The twist here though, is that the 3rd person on the track with them is a mystery number and nobody knows who it is. And then basically rinse and repeat the other one where they put her best friend down on the other side, so it made her choice easy to just knock out the people that she already wanted eliminated. But wouldn't you know it, karma turns her ugly head, because the mystery person she eliminated, along with Akira and her friend, was her. She eliminated herself! Oh my god, that's so good! Like, how do you not see that coming? But now that we're at the last round, it actually blows my mind that nobody is jumping at the opportunity to be captain. I get that it's gonna be a hard choice, but being captain in the final round guarantees that you move on. They did finally decide on somebody to go up, and I have to give her kudos. She played this so well. She knew the Jimmy mind tricks were coming, so she's asked to put one player on each track. On one side, she puts the player that she's kind of fed up with and likes the least, and on the other side, she puts her best friend, which is just secretly genius, because Jimmy's twist was that the people on the tracks get to choose the second person that goes on the tracks with them. Since she's already put her best friend on the other track, there's no way that he can manipulate her by trying to hide behind her best friend. She essentially gave her friend immunity, so no matter who he brought on the track with him, she already knew that he was gone. And since she's not gonna eliminate her best friend, it doesn't even matter who she chose. And they try to do this whole build up like, oh, which track is she gonna choose? Her mind was made up the moment she chose the two people to go down. Honestly, I'm just glad somebody's finally playing these games right. So from here, it's pretty predictable as to what happens. And that leaves the final 10 contestants with just 3 more episodes. The next 2 episodes are like a 2-part game, so I'm just gonna talk about both of them in tandem. There's only 10 contestants left now, so it's gonna get really cutthroat, right? It doesn't. Instead, they're all placed in order from 1 to 10, first by voting for position 1, then that person chooses position 2, and then they choose position 3, etc, etc. So the contestants knew that this was going to be important, but I don't think that they knew that the order didn't directly affect who was gonna get eliminated. It's then revealed that there's $1 million in the middle of the city. And here's the game. Going in order, one at a time, they go out to the middle and take however much money they want. So theoretically, number 1 could go out and take the full $1 million. Or she could take none of it. But why would she do that? That's free money. But realistically, there's 2 routes this can go. With there being 10 players left, each player's fair share is $100,000. If you take that amount or even less, you're probably on the safe side. But if you take even a penny more, you're setting yourself up to be targeted and eliminated by the other players. Player 1 takes her fair share at $100,000, expecting that everyone else would follow along. And in a perfect world, yeah, everyone else would too. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in this world. Have you seen it out there? But unfortunately, player 2 and player 3 literally clean the pile. Like, it's not even close. 223,000 and 650,000. I've been saying it again and again all video. If you're playing for your own prize, you have to accept that that's what you're going home with. By doing that, they forfeited their chance at $5 million. Plain and simple. The other 7 players scrapped together and split the remaining 27,000. Except for Patrick, because he was convinced taking any amount of money was a bad idea and thought it would hurt him in the next game.
I thought nobody was going to take any because we thought it was bait.
Yeah, it's a little bit paranoid, but I see where he's coming from. But even if that was the case, if everybody chose $100,000, or if everybody chose nothing, then everybody would be on the same playing field anyway. With all the money distributed, this directly leads into the next game. Jimmy was going to reveal how much money each player took and try to use it to turn them against each other. But before he could even do that, they already revealed all that information to each other because that's just what humans do. They talk, they gossip, they overshare. Marcy, stop telling me about your foot fungus, especially during lunch when I'm trying to eat my catfish and grits. And that completed episode 8. Episode 9 is the part of the actual game. Jimmy brings everyone back to the tower and gives each player their own floor. 10 are going up, but only 6 are coming down. And it's another voting game. Yay, we're still doing this. I love lack of creativity. Each round, everyone has to vote for someone else to move on. The person with the most votes secures their spot in the top 6, but also can't vote on future rounds. And this goes until 6 people have been voted through. And Jimmy did say that the money comes into play, So of course it does. The twist here is that you can use the money you took to try to bribe the other players to vote for you. But before we even start this game, I guarantee that you can probably guess the 6 people who are moving on. Like, very easily. You might get 1 or 2 wrong, but you're gonna have a high percentage. It's not gonna be the 2 people that took way more than their fair share, and it's not gonna be the people who lied and manipulated others. It's the 6 people you'd absolutely expect it to be. And it was those 6 people. Fact of the matter is, the people who took more than their fair share know that they're not gonna make it on because they're so hated right now. And giving someone their money doesn't necessarily mean you get their vote. They could just take your money.
$150,000 is what you're asking.
Yes.
Therefore, there's no point in trying to bribe anyone if you're one of the people with a lot of money. Cut your losses, take what you have, and go home. But then Jimmy spends an entire 60-minute episode on this one game, trying to show all of the underhanded tricks, manipulations, and bribes everyone uses to get votes. One player tried to get everyone to agree to vote boy, girl, to give him a better chance of moving on. But that didn't work. Another player tried to give just a little bit of his money so that they'd vote for him, but that also didn't work. Literally, they just took his money and voted for someone else. I do respect Jeff though for distributing the little amount he had to the others who didn't get a lot. Not to try to get their votes, but because he wanted to do what was right and give the people who were screwed their fair share. It ended up getting him their votes though, so maybe he was actually brilliant. Either way, it was a good strategy and a very wholesome moment. And then the last couple rounds were at least interesting because everyone was in confusion and panic, and everyone's votes were going all over the place. Not because of the money, but because nobody could really keep track of who everyone was voting for. And wouldn't you know it, the last person to get voted through was the one who didn't talk to anybody. So all of that manipulation that they had with each other was for nothing. Honestly, Jimmy did say it best.
The person who won this final round wasn't the one who strategized the best. It wasn't the one who made the most calls, or the one with the most bribing power. And it wasn't the one who tried to purchase votes. It was 424, the one who stayed off the phones and out of the drama.
So in the end, the people you expected to get voted through got voted through. And it was a lot of drama just to get to the place you expected it to. I get what Jimmy was trying to get at, and maybe if everyone had an even playing field at $100,000, this would have turned out different. But unfortunately, it just ended with the most predictable outcome. Just stop repeating games, Jimmy! 2 episodes for this one game just wasn't worth it. At least the finale was pretty good. The finale begins with a coin flip. This coin flip was introduced at the end of the last episode, where Jimmy says he'll double the total prize winnings to $10 million if anyone is willing to put their elimination on the line for the flip. And I shouldn't have to break down how bad of a deal that is, especially because somebody else already did in a 16-minute video, but I won't take 16 minutes to tell you that's not worth it. Even if you win the coin flip, you're not guaranteed to be the one who wins $10 million. It would be a nice thing to do for other people, I guess, but it's not really worth your spot in the competition at this point. Doesn't matter though, because somebody goes for it anyway. And shockingly, it landed on Tails, so he gets to stay in the game, and now the prize money is up to $10 million. So with the stakes raised, let's hop into these last games. The last 6 players are faced with 6 platforms and told they can choose which platform they want. And in most games, if you can choose your position, then your position matters. And in a game like this, more often than not, choose an edge because that will give you an advantage. Whether that means you're going last and you can see what other people are doing first and learn off of their mistakes, or if it means you have less people targeting you because there's less people around you. In this case, it's the latter of the two. Once the players are in place, they're each given a ball and have to throw that ball into somebody else's tube. If somebody's ball lands in your tube, you're eliminated. This means if you're one of the people in the middle, more people can easily reach your tube, but if you're on one of the sides, you're probably going to be thrown at less. And since from what I can tell, most of these people like each other, personal vendettas don't really come into play here. So it really did just come down to throwing at whoever was convenient or who everyone else was throwing at, trying to keep yourself safe. But all I really learned from this game is that all of these people would be cut from a high school JV basketball team. And wouldn't you know it, the 2 people who were eliminated were ones that were at least kind of in the middle. I mean, it's not like they didn't try to gang up on one of the people on the edge, but because everybody else is taking like moonshots to try to get to them, it really just comes down to a 1v1 between the person on the edge and the person next to them. No notes. It was played pretty well. With 4 people remaining, we're brought to a memory game. There's a grid of squares with a safe path across, and if you can make it across, you gain immunity and get to choose who gets eliminated. But once you're ready to go, the path disappears and you have to travel it by memory. And to be honest, especially with the pattern that they chose, this was so easy, because there's only 2 steps you really need to follow in order to win. Step number 1, remember the starting position. If you don't know where to start, you don't know where you're going. Tips for life, kids. And number 2, don't count the segments, count the steps. So although this is 4 squares long, you should only count that it's 3 squares to walk. And then from there, you just need to remember a series of numbers. Like I can tell you right now, you start on the square, the 3rd from the right, and then the amount of steps you walk is 3311353333. I didn't write that down anywhere. I just know that. What really helps is that there isn't any backtracking in the pattern, and it only cuts towards the middle twice. So instinctually, it's a really easy pattern to follow. So you take that string of numbers, repeat it in your head over and over again, and you win easy peasy. One girl felt she was confident enough to try it, so she headed on down, and then skipped step 1. Is literally step 1. How do you miss step 1? So what could have been a really cool game ended up being really anticlimactic. Maybe if they gave everybody a shot at it, instead of just the first person to go is either winning or eliminated, but they kind of wanted to do the high stakes, high reward thing, so I'll give it a pass. I said I'll give it a pass as if I even have a say on it. Look at me with the big ego. Sorry about that. Let's get to the next game. With 3 people left, Jimmy comes up with one more bribe. Eliminate yourself right now for $1 million. But if no one takes it, he opens an envelope to reveal someone to be eliminated. That person was voted by the top 50 players in Beast Games, which only echoes the fact that if you're not playing with integrity, you're probably not gonna win. But at least this bribe is different from the last ones. All the other bribes were to accept money in return for eliminating other people. But here, you only eliminate yourself, and even potentially save someone else if your name wasn't the one in the envelope. So it was actually beneficial for someone to take the bribe. Otherwise, that's just $1 million being left on the table. And so someone does. Yeah! And now we're down to the final 2 players. How ironic is it that they're literally one number apart? 830 and 831. This game adds so many levels of complexity with strategy. There's a $10 million check in one of these 10 briefcases, and the players take turns switching the position of the cases and have the other player guess where it is. I particularly liked that in the first round, T didn't just mix up the cases, but completely remove some from the numbered spots and put them on top. Knowing that gave me so many ideas actually. Hold up, my dog wants in. Like, could you imagine having 9 stacked up in the middle and then just leaving 1 on the first space right in front of your opponent? Like, is it too obvious to leave the check in the one that's still left in front of them? Maybe it's hidden on the very bottom of the stack. I would have so much fun watching someone try to mentally dissect that. But truthfully, if you want the best strategy, then do this. If you gotta hide something from somebody else, your best bet is to even hide it from yourself. Shuffle the cases until you don't know where the check is, and then there's no way that your opponent could read you. They can't outthink you if you're not even thinking. But what I think is so wild about this first round is that it's the only round. Yeah, Jeff did it on the first try, which is crazy because then Jimmy has the audacity to say,
We play tested this game dozens and dozens and dozens of times. It usually went like 5 or 6 rounds.
Jimmy, I have doubts that you tested any of these games. But how did Jeff get this so quickly? I can break down at least what was probably going through his head. Since there's 10 cases and they've all been given a number, this is simply just a game of choosing a number 1 through 10. Studies show that the most commonly picked numbers in these games are 3 and 7 when surveyed, so since T didn't want to be too obvious, she's not going to put it there. Numbers 1 and 10 also feel obvious just because they're at the ends, and number 5 falls along the same line because it's right in the middle. So in a typical guessing game, this already eliminates half the numbers. And then T also put 3 of the cases on the top. When you're trying to outthink your opponent, being too obvious ends up working against you. So in Jeff's mind, he's already discounted that it's none of the ones on top. And if you eliminate all of those numbers, there's only a small few to choose from. And that's why when Jeff settled on number 6, he chose it because it's the most unassuming case there, which can be summed up in his own explanation.
Did he read her correctly?
I don't think this number's special to her. I think that's one of the reasons why it is.
And there you have it. Jeff wins $10 million and hopefully finds a cure for his son. Honestly, well deserved. But actually, the real winner is the IRS for taking about half of that in taxes. So those were some pretty well played games and a fun finale. And that was Beast Games. It was alright. Personally, I really think it faltered after the first couple episodes because there were too many players to get to know, but also there were just too many bad games to start it off. It did get better as the episodes went on because of the fact that the games and players felt more personal. You got to understand what each player was thinking, and eliminations had more weight. But also, towards the end, more of the players' eliminations felt fair. The first half of the show, even in some of the good games, players were getting eliminated to no fault of their own. Either someone else took a bribe and eliminated them, they happened to be on a lesser team, or maybe they just weren't part of the right clique and weren't well recognized enough to move on. So hopefully Jimmy learns from this and builds upon it for season 2. Maybe they'll have like a League of Legends tournament, or maybe competitive tic-tac-toe. Come on Jimmy, put competitive Toontown in the next one. Eliminate people who can't get a hole-in-one. Actually, low-key, mini golf would be a good idea. Although considering how much the show went over budget, I have doubts that a season 2 would even happen. But prove me wrong. And then bring me on, Jimmy. Please, I need the money. But who knows, maybe I'm just wrong about all of this. What do you guys think? Let me know. What did you think of Beast Games? What was your favorite game? And if you're still watching to this point, there's a video showing up over here somewhere, probably, where I talk about a video game. Because I love video games and I do the same thing, except I talk about video games. And leave a like for... I can't think of anything. Honestly, my brain just feels so numb from watching Beast Games like nonstop the past 3 days. So I'm gonna go edit this and then, yeah.